Rain pattered against the window as Grace Allen sat alone in the quiet stillness of her family's home, the gray Seattle sky casting soft shadows across the room. Her father had been away on business for months now, leaving behind a strange hollowness that settled into the walls, into the furniture, into Grace herself. She missed him in a way that words couldn't quite capture, a mix of nostalgia and longing that surfaced only in these moments of quiet. Her mother was rarely home, often busy with her charity work and social events, leaving Grace to keep herself company in the empty house. The once lively conversations and laughter that had filled their home now felt like distant echoes. She drifted through her days lately, feeling unanchored, like she was searching for something just out of reach. Then, one rainy afternoon, there was a knock at the door. Grace's eyes lifted to the window, catching the familiar sleek black car parked outside. It was her father's closest friend, Jack Donovan, a man she remembered well from her younger years, but hadn't seen in some time. Jack was always effortlessly confident, carrying a presence that drew others to him without a word. She felt a rush of anticipation as she moved to open the door, wondering what had brought him here. "Grace," he greeted her warmly, his voice steady as he stepped inside, shaking off the rain. She felt an unexpected flutter of excitement, something new and unplaceable, as if the arrival of this familiar face might stir the quiet routine of her days into something else entirely. As Grace closed the door behind Jack, she noticed him glance around the house with a familiar, almost nostalgic look. The rain had left a damp chill in the air, so she offered him a warm cup of coffee and led him to the living room. They sat across from each other, the quiet punctuated only by the clinking of coffee mugs and the faint sound of rain outside. "Been a while, hasn't it?" Jack commented, a soft smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Grace nodded, sipping her coffee, aware of the subtle, calming confidence he brought into the room. She'd remembered him as her father's friend, someone from her childhood memories. Yet sitting here with him now felt oddly different, almost like meeting someone new. "I didn't know you were still around here," she said, letting herself relax a bit. "I'm in and out mostly," he replied, leaning back in the chair with an easy familiarity. "Your dad's been keeping me up to speed on everything. He always speaks so proudly of you." The mention of her father's pride sparked something warm in her, yet it reminded her of his absence too. Jack noticed her subtle change in expression, his eyes softening. It must be strange having him away so much. Grace felt herself opening up, almost unconsciously. "Yeah, it's different. We used to be so close, but things have shifted." Jack's gaze held hers for a moment longer than she expected, a look of understanding in his eyes. "Life's funny like that. Relationships grow and change. Sometimes it's hard to keep up." They fell into an easy conversation, sharing memories of family gatherings, her childhood, and little anecdotes about her father. Grace found herself laughing, the sound breaking the usual quietness of the house, and feeling unexpectedly comfortable. She hadn't realized how much she missed a familiar presence, someone who remembered her family's old quirks and routines. As they talked, she noticed small things about him she hadn't before, how his laugh came easily, the way he listened intently when she spoke. And though it was nothing more than a friendly chat, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was stirring, a quiet curiosity she didn't dare voice. In the following weeks, Grace found herself crossing paths with Jack more often. Sometimes he'd stop by to drop off something for her father or just to check in, and each visit brought with it a new layer of comfort and familiarity. Their casual talks became longer, filled with little stories and shared memories that bridged the years between them. One quiet evening, Jack dropped by unexpectedly with a book he thought her father might enjoy. Grace, feeling restless after a long day, invited him to stay for a bit. They sat in the cozy warmth of the living room, the dim light casting soft shadows across the room as they chatted about everything from the latest novels to places they'd both dreamed of visiting. I remember your dad taking us camping, Jack said with a nostalgic grin. I must have been about your age then. He'd tell these long, wild stories around the fire, remember? Grace laughed, nodding. Yes, he still tells those, though I'm sure they've grown more dramatic over the years. They shared a warm chuckle, and for a moment, Grace looked at him, seeing something beyond the familiar friend. Jack was no longer just her father's buddy. He was someone with his own set of dreams, stories, and vulnerabilities. She found herself opening up too, sharing things she rarely spoke about: her struggles with the changes at home, the distance she felt from her parents, her hopes for the future. As he listened, Jack's gaze held a kindness that put her at ease, making her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. His responses were thoughtful, encouraging, and she couldn't help but notice how he never interrupted, letting her talk freely. Their small moments together grew into something she began to look forward to. She'd catch herself glancing out the window when she heard a car, wondering if it was him. And when they did meet, whether for a few minutes or a long conversation over coffee, she felt an undeniable connection building, a warmth she didn't want to acknowledge, but also didn't want to let go of. With each meeting, Grace was surprised by the ease with which they talked, the way he seemed to understand her without her needing to explain. And though she kept reminding herself that he was her father's friend, she couldn't ignore the quiet thrill that came with his presence, the way her heart quickened with each small, meaningful interaction. As the days passed, Grace found herself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. Her interactions with Jack had sparked something inside her, something she hadn't felt in a long time. But each time she thought of their growing closeness, a heavy sense of uncertainty settled over her. She'd replay their conversations in her mind, lingering on the warmth in his eyes, the way he listened with such genuine interest. But there was always a nagging voice that questioned if this connection was truly appropriate. Sitting by her bedroom window one quiet evening, Grace found herself wrestling with those feelings. She'd glance out, half hoping to see Jack's car pull up, and then feel a pang of guilt for even wishing it. He's just Dad's friend, she murmured to herself, as if saying it aloud would somehow make the feelings disappear. But no matter how she tried to rationalize it, the truth remained. There was something about Jack's presence that filled a void she hadn't realized was there. Every interaction was like a delicate dance, one she was afraid to analyze too closely. She'd feel a rush of happiness when he was around, but the moment he left, an uneasy feeling would creep in, leaving her wondering if she'd crossed some unspoken line. Her heart and mind were at odds. Her heart yearned for his company, while her mind reminded her of the boundaries they should both respect. In quiet moments alone, Grace would question herself. Was it simply a craving for connection, for someone who truly listened, or was it something deeper? The thought of seeing him again excited her, but with it came the weight of hesitation, a constant push and pull that left her feeling vulnerable and uncertain. The internal struggle grew each day, fueled by mixed emotions that felt both thrilling and forbidden. Grace knew she couldn't ignore these feelings forever, yet she couldn't bring herself to let go of the connection that had brought a new spark to her life. And so she carried on, walking the fine line between what felt right and the delicate whisper of curiosity that kept her wondering where this path would ultimately lead. One rainy evening, Grace found herself in the dim glow of the living room, curled up on the couch with a cup of tea, her gaze lost in thought as the storm rumbled outside. She hadn't expected Jack to stop by, but when she heard his familiar knock, a thrill of excitement pulsed through her, coupled with that familiar edge of apprehension. He stepped inside, shaking off the rain from his coat, his usual easy smile softening when he noticed her wrapped in a cozy blanket. Her face lit up with surprise and warmth. They exchanged a few casual words, laughing at the weather, sharing fleeting glances that lingered a bit too long. The easy flow of conversation filled the room, and before either of them realized it, they were sitting close on the couch, caught up in a comfortable, almost intimate silence. A quiet tension hung between them as they spoke in soft voices, their laughter giving way to quieter moments, where words felt unnecessary. Grace found herself noticing the way his hand rested close to hers, his presence filling the room with warmth that was both comforting and undeniably charged. She felt a strange pull, as if crossing some invisible line would bring a kind of closeness she craved, yet she knew it would lead somewhere neither of them should go. Then, suddenly, they heard the sound of her mother's car pulling into the driveway. The realization hit them both like a splash of cold water, snapping them out of the moment and pulling them back to reality. They exchanged a glance, one filled with unspoken understanding and perhaps a hint of regret, as they quickly shifted back to safer ground, retreating into familiar boundaries. Grace felt a swirl of emotions, relief, embarrassment, and a quiet sense of loss. It was a fleeting moment that lingered in her mind long after Jack left, reminding her of the fine line she'd almost crossed, and the importance of the boundaries that kept their connection safe, yet still undeniably profound. In the days following the near crossing of their boundaries, Grace and Jack felt the weight of that moment lingering between them. Their interactions had grown quieter, filled with an unspoken tension that neither knew how to address. Grace found herself reflecting on the emotional bond they had developed. Yet she also recognized the importance of family ties and the values that had shaped her upbringing. One afternoon, while folding laundry in the kitchen, Grace felt a familiar presence behind her. She turned to find Jack leaning against the doorframe, his expression serious yet soft. He took a step closer, a mix of determination and tenderness in his gaze. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice steady yet filled with an underlying vulnerability. They moved to the living room, where the sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the space. Sitting across from each other, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Grace could feel her heart race, knowing this conversation was necessary to navigate the complexities of their relationship. "About the other night," Jack began, his eyes searching hers for understanding. "I don't want to make things weird between us, but I also can't ignore how much we've connected." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle in. "But we need to talk about the boundaries. They matter to me, to your family, and to you." Grace felt a mix of relief and apprehension. "I agree," she replied, her voice steady. "I value our connection, but I don't want to jeopardize what we have with our families. They're important, and I can't let my feelings cloud that." As they talked, the conversation flowed with an openness that deepened their understanding of each other. They expressed their feelings honestly, acknowledging the bond they had forged while reaffirming their commitment to family loyalty and respect for the lines that shouldn't be crossed. Jack reached for her hand, his touch gentle and reassuring. "I don't want to lose what we have, but I also don't want to put you in a position where you feel torn. Let's be honest with each other and set clear boundaries." Grace nodded, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. "I think that's what we both need. It doesn't mean we can't share our lives with each other, just that we need to be careful." Their conversation marked a turning point, one that brought clarity and mutual respect. They agreed to maintain their bond while honoring their family structures, ensuring that their connection would flourish within the safe confines of understanding and love. As they parted ways, Grace felt a renewed sense of hope and stability, knowing that they could navigate the complexities of their relationship without sacrificing the values that were so deeply ingrained in their lives. Their connection, though defined by boundaries, remained strong, grounded in the understanding that love could exist in many forms, even amidst the challenges of family dynamics. As time passed, Grace and Jack settled into their new dynamic, one characterized by a deeper understanding and mutual respect for the boundaries they had established. Their relationship flourished, not just as friends, but as confidants who shared a unique bond rooted in their family ties and experiences. One evening, They found themselves sitting together on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the quiet suburb. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the soft sounds of laughter from children playing in the distance. Grace turned to Jack, her heart feeling light as she reflected on their journey. "You know, I never imagined we'd find this kind of connection," she said, her voice warm and genuine. "I value what we have so much more now because we've taken the time to understand each other." Jack smiled, a glimmer of appreciation in his eyes. "Me too. I think it's made us stronger, not just as friends, but as part of each other's lives. I know we can share our thoughts and feelings without fear of crossing any lines." Their conversations had shifted from playful banter to more profound discussions about life, dreams, and the intricacies of their families. They learned to navigate the challenges together, sharing moments of joy and laughter, while still honoring the importance of their respective family commitments. One afternoon, Grace invited Jack to her family's weekend barbecue. It was a casual affair, filled with laughter, stories, and the delicious aroma of grilled food. As they mingled with family and friends, Grace felt a sense of comfort, knowing that Jack was not just a friend, but someone who understood the nuances of her world. Later, as they stood together, watching the family interact, Grace remarked, "I love how this feels. It's like we're part of something bigger together, and it makes me appreciate our connection even more." Jack nodded, his expression thoughtful. "It's important to maintain that balance. Our families matter, and so does what we've built together. It's a reminder that love and loyalty can coexist, no matter how complicated things may get." As the sun set and the stars began to twinkle overhead, Grace and Jack shared a knowing glance, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had undertaken. Their bond, once fraught with uncertainty, had transformed into a source of strength and comfort. They had created a new relationship balance, one that honored their feelings while remaining grounded in the values of family and respect. In the quiet moments that followed, Grace realized that their connection was a reflection of growth, understanding, and loyalty, a testament to the idea that even in the most complex relationships, there's a way to honor both love and family. With hearts full of hope and respect, they embraced the future, ready to navigate whatever came next together, hand in hand.